Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. Made you move. So this is very minimal but it made my day, so I'll share it. I, 32F, have been suffering from the flu and then right after a cold from my son. So I still have a lingering dry cough and runny nose. I also work from home, so calling out from work wasn't a problem. However, the cable company reported an outage, so I decided to pack up my things and head to Barnes & Noble to get lunch and a coffee at the inside Starbucks, then settle in for work on their Wi-Fi. I settled in behind a pillar as to not have anyone really see what I was doing on my computer, sensitive information for work, plus no one's business. I had been there since around 11:30, and for the most part the place was empty. Around 2 p.m., an older couple, I would say around 70s, comes in and orders some Starbucks. Cool, no problem. I'm just minding my business. At this point, the whole area was empty. They sit directly in front of me and they give me a look. I was so focused on work, I didn't notice I had a little pile of used napkins I placed in the food container. I wasn't going to go to the trash every time I blew my nose. But whatever. It's not like I was throwing them at people, and they were all in a closed plastic container so that when I left it's just pick up and toss out. Over the course of 30 minutes, the elderly woman was to me would constantly turn her body completely to stare at me, and even put on a mask. Her husband on occasion would stare at me. It dawned on me, they were staring at me each time I coughed. Now I got a little angry. Don't blame me for your decision to sit literally within 6 feet of me when the whole place was empty. So, I was no longer trying to hold in my coughs and tried to delicately blow my nose. I just let it all go. The stares became glares. Each time they would look, I would look up and smile at them sweetly. My headphones were on the whole time so I couldn't hear if they said anything. Around 3:30, they finally pick up their stuff and move to a table maybe 20 feet away. Success. But then the universe blessed me. Not 5 minutes later, I get a call from the cable company. They were en route to my home for maintenance on the internet and would be there in 15 minutes. So I looked up at the couple with another sweet smile, picked up my things, threw away my trash and walked out with a wave and a smile to them. They just stared at me. Perfection. Story 2. Fuck around and find out. Just found this sub and thought I'd share this, at least to me funny, story. So many moons ago I moved to a new city to start my studies. Student housing was quite pricey and luckily I found a decent place to stay close by. The house had 4 units only, so I got to know the neighbors pretty soon. One of the neighbors tried to befriend me from the beginning. After a few chats in the hallway, I realized we have way different perspectives where it doesn't even make sense to argue. Awkwardly he really tried to pass me off to still have chats which I've started to evade in a friendly way. Either way I guess he noticed it after a while and this was the moment things changed. I've started to realize that every time I've ordered food and they ringed my buzzer his door opened but as soon as I went down to grab it, it closed again. I found it odd, but didn't think much about it up until one of the drivers was like, "Hey, your neighbor tried to snatch your food." After he tried it multiple times again I told him very clearly to stop it, what he eventually did. This is when phase 2 started. Every unit had its own heating system for general heating and the water, which needed to be refilled with a little water itself every now and then. There was one hose for everyone in the hallway which suddenly disappeared. After figuring out with the other neighbors, the guy decided he's too lazy to bring it back and declared it as his personal one. Everyone just got their own ones and we mutually agreed to just fuck off. In the meantime the guy started to smoke and plastered the whole pavement with the remainings, to further emphasize on the character. So when I knew I'm going to move out I thought, well, let me have fun once and annoy him a little bit. I played nice and asked to borrow his hose, what he agreed to. Too bad of me that I've forgot to give it back knowing I'll be away for 2 months. Shortly after my return I was greeted by my fuming neighbor who apparently couldn't heat and didn't have any warm water for a month. Let me tell you, the expression on his face combined with his anger was brilliant. What made it even better for me was that he was simply met with a similar action compared to his own. Unsurprisingly, none of the others wanted to borrow their hoses. Eventually he tried to physically force his way into my place to take back his hose. I'll keep it briefly here, he didn't enter and waited for me to return it. I thought as heated as he was, a few more days of cold showers would cool down his temper until I've returned it. Fuck around and find out it is, I guess. And just to be clear, I knew as a matter of fact that he stole it from the community. Story 3. Car trouble. I stopped by a friend's. He lives in a duplex with carport on each side. We were standing in his drive talking and he pointed to the two ladies next door who were trying to start their car. See those two women? I've noticed a couple times lately that my lawnmower gas can was empty when it shouldn't be. So I filled the can with water and just a little gas and left it on the patio. No shit, I said. Yep. I think I figured out who's been stealing my gas. Then he hollers over to the women, y'all having car trouble? Story 4. Monster-in-law excludes my oldest so I exclude her. I, 25F, married my husband James, 29M, 2 years ago. I have a daughter, 11F, Lily. Yes, I had a kid at 14. I don't regret having her, just the timing of it all, and I also have 2 twin girls, 8 months. Lily's father was never present in her life, so when James came around, I was honestly surprised the father role he took and how much Lily loved him. I knew after a year I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. Around the time we were planning for the wedding, my mill kept make remarks about Lily not being James' child, but we brushed it off until my mill flat out told us she wouldn't be financing the wedding if Lily wasn't a guest. Mill also said because she wasn't his she'd never support Lily. We had no problems with Mill not paying for the wedding, we were just both taken aback she'd ever say anything like this. I obviously objected to that bewildering statement, and so did James. Mill tried to plead with James, and when he wouldn't budge, Mill stormed out of our house. Lily was our flower girl, and on the day of the wedding Mill tried to stop Lily 3 times, once by even blocking the path to the altar, but was easily stopped each time by other guests and the groomsmen. Besides that, our wedding went off without hitch, and I wouldn't have preferred it any other way. The wedding was magical beside the beast. After having my twins, Mill withdrew from Lily entirely. Lily, not understanding why, was obviously upset. Well, over the weekend Lily celebrated her 11th birthday, and per her request she wanted everyone to give a speech at her birthday. Everyone but Mill was included. Mill hates not being front and center always, so when everyone was done giving their speeches I turned around to see Mill and she was pissed. She later pulled me and James aside and asked why she wasn't included. I asked her what happened to never supporting Lily. After the party James asked why Mill wasn't included. I told him after the wedding fiasco and not giving Lily equal amount of time as she did the twins, she wasn't to be included in that portion of the party. James agrees with me, but Mill is still upset about the ordeal. Edit. A week after posting this, me and James sat down and talked about going no contact with Mill, as a lot of you suggested. James said he knew Mill wouldn't like it, but he'd be damned if he didn't put Lily first. James talked with Mill and she admitted to James that she'd thought I'd never marry James because I already had a kid, and when we got married Mill thought James was too good for Lily and I. From what James says, Mill was pissed about our NC thing, but James and I don't care. It's been some time and James' sister and brothers have all tried to get us to talk to Mill, but we're standing our ground. Mill has been out of our lives for 2 weeks and we're doing just fine. Story 5. Told my sil she may have scabies. A few years ago I was staying at my brother's house for a couple of weeks. The second day there I went out to visit other family members. When I got back my sil was wearing my shirt. I was shocked. Who goes into someone else's bag and takes their clothes and wears it right in front of them? I had to check to make sure it was mine, so I go look and sure enough mine is not there. So I had 2 bags. I took the bag the shirt was in, came out the room and asked her if I could use her washer. I told her I got an email saying the hotel I was at before I got there had a scabies outbreak and they suggested that I wash everything in hot water. Then giggled all night when it was obvious she was itchy thinking about it. Story 6. Give out my phone number and I'll give out yours. I got a new phone number in 2019 and no issues for a year. In 2020 I started getting calls for healthcare insurance. I'd get texts and calls frequently for Medicare coverage and such. I'm not Medicare age and work, so I have insurance. I kept asking them to update their info and remove my number. I tried putting my number on the Do Not Disturb list and all the other lists, but the calls kept coming. This continued for over 2 years and picked up whenever enrollment periods would open up. Edit: when you want to get insurance quotes, you enter in a phone number. This person kept putting in my number to get the quote, but avoid the spam calls. Source: work in healthcare. Eventually the callers would ask for someone by their first name, will say they were looking for D. I'd ask for the last name but wouldn't get it due to privacy reasons. After more junk and the calls not stopping, the next time I got a call I pretended I didn't hear. Who are you looking for? B? C? D? We have a D Smith here. Are you looking for D Smith? A few callers finally told me who they were looking for, so I had the full name. Same name every time. I googled my phone number and this person's name and found on this person's company website. Phone number the same, but the last digit was a 4 instead of a 5. I created a temp number and texted this person asking, is this D Brown? I keep getting calls and texts to my number for you, if so. I think they have your number wrong. They wrote back, none of your effing business who this is. Okay, fine. I figured it was them. As I kept getting calls, instead of saying wrong number, I started giving out the DS number. Oh, you want D Brown? This isn't the right number, I think the number is the same but ends in 4. I did this for the next 5 to 10 callers. Fast forward 2 years and I haven't had calls for D since then. Story 7. Stranger put their clothing in with ours. Didn't think I'd have a good enough petty story, but this happened a few hours ago. Mild revenge. Put laundry in a apt complex washing machine and went to go do errands assuming they would be ready for the dryer when we got back. Come back and see that the washer we swore we started says it has 30 minutes left. Odd. Turned out someone who had a small handful of underwear and shirts decided on the bright idea of mixing their laundry in with ours and rerunning the cycle. Ended up sorting through the soaking wet pile to find ours, strained the water back into the machine, and threw their clothing back in the water with lid open so it won't run. If we have to now run 2 dryer cycles since someone decided on this brilliant plan, we can at least delay them getting their clothing done longer. We did think about even more petty options like putting their clothing outside, but Complex has cameras outside so we decided against it. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.